Robert Plank Show, episode 342 Instant Productivity. 4 daily tasks, get your groove back, reduce anxiety, find motivation, and make money with Lance Tamashiro. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the show. Our guest today is my business partner. His name is Lance Tamashiro. His podcast is at lt.show, and his book is called Income Machine. It's available at incomemachine.com/book, although we should grab that one too. So, Mr. Lance, how are things today?
Oh man, things are great. I'm super excited to be here. I don't think I've ever been on your show.
I think you were months and months ago, but always good to have a sort of a return guest. And so, like, what's been on my mind lately is just sort of like, I don't know, like, we all kind of fall into these traps of kind of needing to get your mojo back or get back in the groove or get motivated or get out of a funk or whatever term you want to put on it. So, I mean, have you ever been there? I mean, what are your thoughts on this whole, like, kind of getting back on track stuff?
Yeah, gosh, the funny thing is this same problem exists wherever you are in business, I think. Like whether you're a multi-billion dollar company, whether you're a multi-million dollar company, whether you're just getting started, with people that we work with and the stuff that happens in our business, this happens all of the time where you go through basically these seasons of being super motivated about something, doing a lot of work, like really getting out there. And then you get into these seasons where, you're not so motivated to do stuff, or you kind of let the train sort of roll itself and you let the business kind of run itself. And the problem that I always have with this type of stuff is sort of a balance, right? Like, if I'm super motivated about something, I want to work 18, 20 hours a day, which then makes me get into not this motivated place. And the problem is for me, is when I get in these I'm not motivated places, it sort of spirals downward, meaning I want to work less, I want to work less, I want to work less. And pretty soon I don't want to work at all. And for me, it's a scary place to be because that's when your business can die without you even knowing about it. That's when you're not growing. I think it's Tony Robbins that says your business is either growing or dying. It's never staying the same. And so, for me, it's always been this problem of finding balance. And then once I recognized that I'm out of balance, the question is, how do I get motivated again, but get motivated in a way that's sustainable?
Awesome. And so I'm really curious about a couple things that you mentioned there. So you mentioned sort of balance, and when I kind of think or I hear about balance, that's sort of like a scary thing in and of itself for me because I think like, okay, like balance, what does that mean? Does that mean like I spend like half my time on the business and half my time with real world stuff, or does that mean I have like all these tabs open or multitasking? Or so like when you're talking about this whole like idea of balance. I mean, what does that mean to you? To you, like, what are you doing, or what do you have when you achieve that balance, at least temporarily?
I mean, for me, when I'm at the sweet spot, which is where I try to be, and it's very hard. But when I'm at the sweet spot for me, it's basically, what we talk about is called 4 daily tasks. And it's basically where I look at working, growing, like doing stuff for the business exactly for about, I would say roughly 3.5 hours a day. So 3.5 to 4 hours a day of tasks that are building the business or things that have to get done in the business. And for me, I find that if I sit at a computer too long, I start doing things that are detrimental to the business. So what I mean is, if I'm working on a web page and I just feel stuck and I start going down, researching this and trying to find a headline this, and it's just not happening, then I start making mistakes. I start doing stuff. My brain gets tired, but it tricks me into thinking I'm busy because I'm sitting at the computer. And that happens to me after about an hour's worth of work. So what I like to try to do is come up with tasks that are about 45 minutes long, is about the sweet spot for me, where I just, for 45 minutes, I have nothing else opened on my computer and I'm focused on whatever that is, just for 45 minutes. Close down Facebook, close down email, close down Skype, close down everything, and work for 45 minutes to an hour on that one task. When it's done, then I can give myself a reward, go for a walk, go hang out with the kids, check email, go on Facebook, whatever it is. So I try to have three of those type of tasks. And then one task that I start with every day that's basically a give me, right? So it'll take 15, 20 minutes. Maybe it's answering emails or sending out an email, just something to get going so I have a small win. And for me, it's those four things. So three, basically one sitting things, and then one sort of get the ball rolling thing. And the trap that I fall into is that I go, I can do more than that. Like today, I can do 8 hours worth of stuff. So I'm going to make more tasks. And when I get into that place, that's when it's not sustainable for me. I get burned out. Like I can do that for 3 days, maybe. But then do that for 3 days, and then I'm like burned out for a week, and then it's hard to get motivated again. So it actually, over the course of time, is a detriment. Whereas if I would have just done those things consistently for say 3 weeks, the three tasks of 45 minutes, the one task of 15 minutes, at the end of 3 weeks, I would have been further ahead. But my brain tricks me and says, well, at the end of the week, I'll be way further ahead than I would have, and I'll keep going. But if I look at it over time, which if you're building a business or you have a goal like weight loss or you're working out or you're trying to get in shape, whatever your goal is, your brain will trick you into thinking, well, if I get all of this done in a week, I'll be even further ahead. For me, it puts me less ahead if I look at it over time. And what I'm trying to do is build habits, businesses, lifestyle changes that last over time.
Awesome. And I can relate to a lot of that. And I just want to let everyone know that this term four daily tasks was invented by Mr. Lance himself. Because when me and Lance started talking to each other via email before we started working together, I was playing around with like different productivity stuff and having an accountability partner and like figuring out like how many tasks do I actually get done in a day and trying out different sort of numbers. And I noticed sort of like you alluded to there in that there's definitely like an optimal number, or there's like a system that seems to work. And when I tried just a couple of tasks, it would be like I would just have like, kind of inconsequential things happening during that day, and then the whole day would it would take me 8 hours to do two little tasks because I only had two tasks on there. And then when I had days where I listed like 10, 20 things, then I'd only get about 3.5 things or four of those things done during that day. And then I would kind of just look at that list with resentment as like a thing that kind of grew and grew. And I think that at some point you kind of coined this term, Mr. Lance, and called it four daily tasks. And you guys can all join a free Facebook group to kind of keep yourselves motivated if that's the kind of thing you want at fourdailytasks.com/group. And I think that, you and I both have kind of like gotten on this system, and then on those months, there's some months when we kind of like don't take it seriously, I guess, and kind of fall off the system. And for me, at least, when I don't do those four daily tasks every day, that's kind of when I go through like sort of the slow season. And then when I want things to pick back up, I get back on those four daily tasks. And I think that some people who have had difficulty with that, I think they kind of like they haven't really gotten the hang of these 45-minute blocks, right? They say, oh, well, four things, I can do 20 little things. And we're saying,
Yeah.
if you have a lot of little things, make them fit into that sort of 45-minute kind of block. And so I'm really curious, like, do you have any tricks for that? Do you have any tricks to kind of, if you have all the things you have to do during that day, making sense of what's important and what's not, and fitting the things you have to do into these kind of 45-minute blocks of time?
Yeah, and here's the first thing, and this is something I learned from you, and it was hard to do at first, but then like really started making sense, and that is don't keep a to-do list. I know, right? Like every productivity thing you ever hear is like, make a to-do list, keep these long lists. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One is what you said. If I have a long to-do list, what I find is that it never gets finished, right? And I always feel defeated. And then it gets longer and longer and longer. And I look at this giant list and I start to feel like I'm never going to get this done. And so the first thing, and trust me and hear me out on this, is get rid of your to-do list. I mean, have a long-term vision, have a goal you're trying to reach, but get rid of your to-do list. When you wake up every morning, then what you look at in your business or your diet or whatever it is you're trying to do, when you get up in the morning, go, what are the three? And I'm going to say three because remember, the first task you do is just something easy to get the ball rolling. Like maybe if you're trying to get in shape, maybe it's wake up and take a 15-minute walk around the block just so you have a win to get you motivated for the day. So we're going to set that one aside for now and go, what are the three most important things today? Maybe that's setting up a website. Maybe that's doing meal planning. Maybe that is making a new product, right? So you wake up and figure out what your three most important or pressing things for your business are that day. Because here's the problem. If everything is a top priority for your business, then nothing's a priority, right? There can't be everything is the top priority. There has to be one thing or three things that are the top priority for that day. Everything else doesn't matter. You got to get done the highest priority items today. So whatever that is for you, get those three things done. And what you'll find is, if it's important enough, and I don't know how many times over the years since we've been doing this process for our productivity, where I've thought something was important, but it wasn't in the top three most important things to do that day, that I thought it was important, but it wasn't in the top three. So I put it aside, did the top three. The next day, I wake up and in the back of my head, I'm going, all right, that was super important. I'm gonna get to it. But again, it wasn't in the top three. And what I find is I didn't need to do it anyway over time. Like I find that if I would have done what I thought was important, it would have just been busy work or something else worked itself out. And I know that's like one of those things where it's not concrete because it's not on your to-do list, but I promise you, if it's important enough, it will percolate automatically into that top three. It will get there. And if it never makes it into that top three, it wasn't important for your business. It was a nice to have. It was something your brain was tricking you about. And for us, I really do find that when things aren't going well or the way that we think they're to do, it's either because we're focusing on the wrong priorities or we're spending too much time on the wrong stuff, and we need to reevaluate what's most important for that day. Now, the second part of your question is, how do you chunk these things up and put these tasks together? And this is really hard. And the example I like to use is when I first got started marketing online, like I literally would spend weeks working on a simple opt-in page. And I'm talking about, a simple web page. We didn't have WordPress, or people weren't using WordPress for these types of things back then. So to put up a web page that had a headline, 3 bullet points, and hooked up to my autoresponder so I could collect email addresses and names and then have them on my list, that would literally take me weeks, 2 weeks or so. And so the problem is I would get up and I would just be sitting at a page and I would be like, I can't get a good headline. I don't know what a good headline is. I blah, blah, blah. And so what I had to start doing was, because I knew I couldn't do it in 45 minutes or even a day, I knew it was going to take me long, is I had to break that into pieces. So back then it was, well, just get a blank web page up, because you had to create web files, you had to figure out your hosting. So for me, it was just get a blank web page set up. So today that might be, maybe you don't know how to get WordPress installed and you just need to get WordPress installed. That would be a task, right? Give myself 45 minutes to go on YouTube, to ask somebody, to figure out how to actually get a web page set up. Then my second task, because I wasn't a copywriter and I took all these expensive bad advice copywriting courses, I was like, oh my gosh, I got to create a headline. I got to create all of these headlines. I just gave myself 45 minutes to make a headline. And then I didn't know how to set up the autoresponder. So I would give myself 45 minutes to do that task. And what I found is that what's cool is at each step of the way, I'm done with the task, right? Like I can go concretely look at it and go, did I set up a blank web page? Yes. Did I put a headline on that web page? Yes. So at the end of my second task, I had a web page with a headline. I know some people are like, that took you an hour and a half. Well, yeah, it did because it was hard for me. But now that I've done it through this process, I can do it faster and faster. And then the third task was setting up the autoresponder. So now I've got a web page that works with a headline that's hooked up to my autoresponder. So it was broken up into tasks. And as I broke that into these tasks, a couple things happened. The first is it made me build a system. I didn't realize I was building a system, but I started to build a step-by-step system because I was just doing the next thing. I wasn't worried about setting up a web page with a headline and getting the autoresponder set up. I was worried about setting up a web page. Then I was worried about a headline. Then I was worried about the autoresponder. And what happened was I inadvertently built a system around that. So every time it got faster and faster. And now that thing that used to take me a super long time, it now takes me the whole part in one 45-minute task, if not less than that. And so I think it's break it up into realistic things where you can go, did I complete this 45-minute task? If you didn't, then you need to break it up further, right? And so that's how you start to figure out what takes you 45 minutes. And I would say start smaller rather than bigger until you start to figure out what that is, because you can always add more into the task. And the second thing is, if you start doing this, you're going to notice patterns where you start to build systems. And I think that that's been the backbone of our business, the business that we built, is we've become so good at systematizing, building systems. And people say, well, how do you build all these systems? How come it's so easy for you to do? And for me, I can directly point back to this 4 daily task productivity is where every one of the systems that I've built has come from.
Lots of really good advice in there. And what I especially like is that when we figure out our tasks, they're things that we can actually finish. As you said, you can look back and say, did I complete this? So it's not just, oh, spent 45 minutes working on an opt-in page. It was 45 minutes making that headline, 45 minutes making the bullet points, 45 minutes making the button. And even as you were sort of explaining that like you said, okay, one task was just the headline, a lot of people might kind of be listening to that and they laugh. And we think, well, I would rather sort of do less at first but change my way of thinking and be more focused, because I think that like this was me for sure, like in the college years, and I think this is the majority of our customers. They're super scattered, right? They're super multitasking. They have all these different programs open, so it's really hard for them to even know like what the heck they're even supposed to be doing. And even the smallest of tasks, they think they're getting them done really quickly because they say, oh yeah, I just got 20 things done in 2 hours. And it's like, yeah, but if you actually divided the time that it took you to make that, it took you, 10 minutes to check a box or 10 minutes to click a button because you kept on doing all this sort of, switching gears and stuff. And so what that kind of leads me to kind of wonder about, and this is something that like I struggle with a lot, is sort of like switching around on projects. Or sometimes I feel like sometimes I either like bite off more than I can chew, and there are some days for sure when I'm kind of thinking, well, either I could, as far as like my 3.5 or my 4 tasks, I could either kind of like do 3 separate things and kind of move things like a millimeter in each direction, or I could kind of hunker down and focus on one project and get that project moved 3 or 4 steps ahead. So, I mean, do you ever sort of fall into that trap or like be kind of confused about what to do? Because I know like that's my problem lately. It's just kind of wondering, well, on a certain day, should I be moving one project forward with all my tasks, or should I be sort of moving a bunch of things forward with all my tasks? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, for me personally, and this changes for me, honestly, is I need to be excited about the things that I'm working on, right? And sometimes I'm just not. So the question is, how do you get excited about stuff? And the truth for me is I get excited when I see results. Yes, there's things that are a drag that just have to be done, but I get excited about results. And so for me, that's either creating, either creating, seeing something tangible, or yeah, I mean, basically it's one of those things. I need to see something tangible happen. or I need to be creating something with the expectation that something tangible is going to happen. And so the trap that I fall into, and this is going to be, it's sort of a non-answer answer, but it really is an answer if you hear me through the whole thing. And it's this. The example I'm going to use is traffic, right? So if you're building an online business, I don't care, well, if you've got a service, if you've got an offline business, if you've got an online business, it's traffic, right? So this doesn't necessarily apply to the personal development type stuff like weight loss or learning a new skill. Learning a new skill will. So this will apply to all of you. So here's what happens to me, and I'm going to use website traffic, getting visitors as my example. I buy courses all the time on how to get traffic, like all the time. And what happens to me is I buy the course and then I'm like, okay, it's got 9 hours of videos. I got to go through all 9 hours. Then I got to set it all up. And then, so I go through all 9 hours. I set everything up the way I think I'm supposed to as I'm watching these 9 hours of videos. And then I dump a bunch of money into ads and nothing happens. So I go, that didn't work. And I jump onto the next thing. It turns out that sort of process, right? And I think we all go through it no matter what it is. I did the same thing when I was building drones. I got to learn everything about it, and then I got to go out and fly it. And then if I can't fly it, then I'm going to quit, and move on to the next thing. Or I'm going to lose all this weight. And if I don't do it within a week, I'm going to quit. And what turns out works for me is basically the tortoise and the rabbit type of thing, right? Where I need to be slow and steady and consistent, and I get better results. So here's what happens because we're going through this now with traffic. I bought a couple of traffic courses. I go through each part, again, 1 hour sitting, right? Like maybe the videos are an hour long. One of my tasks is go through the video, right? Then the second task is implement the video. And what we've started doing is we realize that things need tweaking, right? Like things are going to change. And so when we started doing it this way, what I would do is I would set up a meeting with you, Robert, and most of the time you didn't even know what I was doing. You just look at my screen and sort of learn a little bit about what I was learning, and then give me some input. But mostly it was for me to stay motivated, make sure I was on track, and have that accountability of somebody watching my screen as I'm implementing stuff, but also being a cheerleader, right? So inadvertently, as Robert's watching me do this stuff, he's like, oh, that's cool. What was that? Oh, that's awesome. Look at the results you're getting. Oh, maybe you should try this. And all of a sudden, I'm getting that excitement, right? That's coming from that outside validation that I sometimes need. And so with traffic, for example, is when I was starting doing this, I would meet with Robert every day for 15, 20 minutes and just show him what I had done the day before, show him what I thought was working and what wasn't, and then make one small tweak. I would make one small tweak and then say, hey, will you meet with me again in 2 days or tomorrow or next week and look at this again with me? And then I'd go learn for my 3 daily tasks, implement some changes, show up with Robert and say, look, here's what worked, here's what didn't, here's what I'm going to change. And what I found was for me, generating traffic worked out so much better when I didn't expect to make 1 million sales on day one and started with, can I get traffic? If I could get traffic, then I'd worry about the landing page. If I could get traffic and the landing page converted, then I would worry about making money with it. Because what I used to do is I'd start with the offer, the landing page, and then do the traffic, not knowing anything about the way the traffic worked. But when I broke it down through 3 daily tasks of what's most important, well, can I even get traffic with this method? Who cares if it's going nowhere, if it's going to something totally irrelevant? All I want to see is, can I generate traffic? Once I proved I could generate traffic, then I worried about the landing page. Once I proved that the landing page worked because I knew I could get traffic, then I worried about optimizing the offer. And so for me, it was, again, going back to almost looking at things differently, right? Backwards. Instead of looking at the offer, the landing page, and then traffic, I reversed it. And I only found that through 4 daily tasks and through not trying to do it all at once, but giving myself a realistic timeline, whether that's a month, 6 months, whatever, where I'm working on it a little bit each day so that I'm seeing results each time that I revisited that. I don't get overwhelmed. I can keep up with the latest trends, and I can start seeing results immediately by doing it this way.
And there's so much good stuff to unpack there, and I think that a lot of what's helped you and I is by having these meetings and by sort of having this thing called the Google Calendar. That way we can see what we have coming up, and that way if we have to be somewhere for a certain time, we can be there. And that's the sort of thing where I really resisted that sort of an idea of having a calendar for a long time, because I thought to myself, well, if I didn't have these meetings and things planned out or if I do have these meetings and things planned out, now I kind of don't have freedom, right? Now I have to be at a certain place, a certain time, even though I realized how silly of an idea that was, because we can always sort of change meetings. And when we say meetings, we're talking about just, quick 10-minute things, not a lot of chit chat, just what it is that we have to get done. And I think that what makes a lot of that work is, everyone talks about having like a coach or an accountability partner, and that's exactly what that is, just kind of meeting and seeing where things are at and doing those things that are important. And I think that because the other person's there, it's like we can't waste hours and hours. So it's like, I don't know about you, Mr. Lance, but like I'm fine wasting my own time, but if I'm wasting someone else's time, I'm like, I better, put the pedal to the metal. So it's like by having that kind of time crunch, we're focused, it kind of forces us to focus on that low hanging fruit. And like you said, that's like traffic in an internet marketing sense. But even if someone's listening to today's episode looking to get motivated or get energized or whatever, if let's say that they are trying to lose weight, well, they could find some sort of like weight loss coach or even just like an accountability partner and meet with them on Skype for, once a day for 10 minutes, and not even talk about like weight or diet or whatever, but just like if they walked for 20 minutes yesterday, then they could meet and just like share those kinds of numbers. And even just something like that, even though it seems really kind of like not a huge deal, those sorts of things add up over time, right? Those daily actions. And I've noticed as well that by doing these meetings, and again, if we're talking about webinars, podcasts, or meetings to get things figured out, it's just kind of really helped, again, to train my brain to kind of live in the present. And a lot of people kind of talk about living in the present because, some people are dwelling on the past and how things used to be and like the good old days when they were younger, maybe, or they're so focused on the future that they don't even have time to enjoy the things that are right in front of them. And I noticed that in the last maybe 2 or 3 days, I've honestly personally just been kind of down. I didn't know why, and I didn't even feel like getting into the computer, and I didn't feel like coding the stuff I needed to do on the computer. And then I woke up this morning and I realized, oh geez, well my alarm goes off at 5 a.m. Every day, but this last weekend, last few days, I slept in. And these last few days, I didn't take a walk every morning first thing. And I took a walk later, but that didn't kind of set the day up right. And I noticed that I just hadn't drank as much water over the weekend as I normally do during the week. And I just kind of this morning woke up and I realized I was missing this handful of simple things like the walking, getting outside, waking up early, drinking water instead of like coffee or tea or something like that. And so like just kind of all these handful of like proven simple things that everyone's heard about, once I actually applied them, then I was kind of back back in the groove, and including the whole like living in the moment thing. Imagine that, like the simple things work. And so I bring all that up because as we're sort of winding down this call, I'm curious about what your morning routine is like, and like you can feel free to be like as like specific or as general as you want, but I mean, what are our typical mornings like for you in order to kind of set up the day to be as best as it can be?
Yeah, so my morning is I wake up between 5:15 and 5:30. Like I'm just programmed to. So I wake up early, and I didn't used to be. I mean, I literally when we first started our business, I would wake up 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock. Like I'm not a morning person. And so what I did to start waking up earlier is just an hour. Like I'd set my alarm starting an hour earlier. And then when I got used to that, I'd set my alarm an hour earlier. So again, don't go from, if you wake up at noon now, don't just try to wake up at 5 in the morning. You'll never do it, but maybe try to wake up at 11 o'clock. And when you get good at waking up at 11, start waking up at 10, right? And that's same type of idea as 4 daily tasks. Just ease into it so that you see victories in whatever that long-term goal is. And here's what I noticed is when I wake up earlier, when I finally got to the point that I was waking up about 5:15, 5:30, I love being up in the mornings. I love when it's quiet. That's when I can sort of reflect on my day. And so what I do is I wake up, turn on the coffee, and then I go sit out on my deck and I do basically spiritual readings, personal development readings, just kind of hang out and do nothing. And if you really think about it, how many times in today's society do you do nothing, right? Or that you sit down and read a book without the TV on, without your phone sitting next to you. So for me, there's something really nice about having that time with no electronics outside. And again, this doesn't have to be your routine, but I think it's important that we unplug for a while. So I do that. Then I have breakfast. Then I spend a little bit of time with the kids, whether that's making breakfast with them or taking them wherever they have to go. And then I start my workday about 8 o'clock and do the 4 daily tasks, right? So in a great day, by noon, everything's done. And what's awesome about that is that at noon, I can have lunch and then I can make the decision. Is there something else I want to work on, right? Was there a number 4 thing on my list? Or is there something I want to research? Is there something I want to learn? Is there something that I just need to feel like I need to get done that isn't really a task thing that needs to happen? Can I make some phone calls? Whatever it is. Or I can say, well, cool, it's summertime. The kids want to go to the pool. I can go swimming with them or whatever. But what you'll find is you are so much more productive in the morning than you are in the afternoon. And I don't know why this is true, and the reason I even tried this is I started reading some autobiographies about biographies and autobiographies about successful CEOs, and every one of them had this routine where they like to get into the office and wake up early and get their stuff done. And what I found is, and they found this as well, it's not like I discovered this, but I discovered it for me, is I'm way more productive even before 10 a.m. I'm super productive, and then I just start to decline from there. So it's a couple of benefits. I get some spiritual time for myself. I get some time with my family. I get to take advantage of my most productive time, and I've put in a full day's work before most people are even getting out of bed. So that's sort of what it looks like for me. And the one thing I would say is, I know that this is the kind of thing that if I had just heard it, I'd be like, no way, I'm going to use my planner and my list. You're crazy. Do this. Commit to doing this 4 daily tasks for 30 days. Put all your other systems aside. Commit to doing this for 30 days. And if in 30 days you can't look back on the previous 30 days and say, I got more done than I would have, I feel better than I would normally do, and my life is better, then go back to your old system. But every single person that we've given this challenge to of do it for 30 days and commit to it for 30 days has never gone back the other way. And don't do 6 tasks. Don't do 2 tasks. Do 4 tasks the way that we've laid it out. And I promise you, if you do it for 30 days, it will change your life.
I think that's really good advice, and the thing that really stuck in there with me, with you saying, just do 4 daily tasks for 30 days, what stuck in there for me is just do that exact system, because we see a lot of people in our courses and things, they'll take what we teach them and they'll try to kind of get fancy right out of the gate, and then they'll wonder like why it didn't work, or they'll wonder why it was so hard. And we ourselves do this, and we have conversations all the time. Like usually we learn a technique from someone or from a course, and then we apply it and it doesn't work, and we go back and say, oh yeah, it's because we tried to get fancy, we made shortcuts, or we tried to add steps. And I think that what kind of struck in my head as you were explaining all that is, if you just commit to 4 daily tasks as it is without adding your own sort of stuff, that way you'll have a baseline, right? You can try 4 daily tasks for 30 days, and then if you want to try adding your own stuff, you can say, well, that either may be more productive or not as productive as that initial 30 days. So lots of great stuff here, and I hope everyone listens to it more than once as far as like getting your morning routines figured out, your step-by-step system, reduce multitasking or eliminate multitasking, get rid of your to-do list, all that kind of stuff. And so, one final question as we're wrapping this up here, Mr. Lance, is, one kind of like motivation and mindset issue that I struggle with is sort of, either being like super like anxiety or angry versus being sort of chilled out and relaxed. And I think that, in a perfect world, I would be kind of chilled out and relaxed and money would be coming in all the time. But then it's just like if I get too chilled out, then certain things kind of slip away, get away from me. And like, in our business, like sometimes some tickets don't get answered as much or bugs don't get fixed as quickly. Or I know that, some projects I have kind of end up taking a little bit longer than they should because I'm just sort of, chilled out and relaxed. And then on the other hand, if I'm kind of nervous about the business or I'm nervous about some huge like personal expense I have or taxes or whatever, then I kind of like, get pumped up and get going. But then there's like kind of that the anger and the anxiety is kind of along for the ride there. So do you have any like advice for that as we're winding down? Just like how to get motivated, how to get excited without like the anger, rage, anxiety, all that kind of being along with it?
I think the first thing is don't beat yourself up because you're not where you think you need to be, or you're not making the progress you think you need to be making, or you see somebody else, excelling in a course that you're taking. Don't beat yourself up. Look at it as you're moving closer to the goal that you've got. That would be the first thing. The second thing is, I look through my life and I think about the times that I've had anxiety or I've worried about stuff. If it goes too overboard, you're right. It's crippling and paralyzing. And what I found is somehow I've made it through my, let's just say 40 plus years. Okay, like I've made it. Do you know what I mean? And all of the things that I thought I was going to die or the sky was going to fall or all of these things, as I look back over my life, none of those things ever materialized the way that I thought they were going to. So I worried for the wrong thing. And now what I try to do when I have that anxiety, when I have that that worry, yes, I want to be motivated, but I don't want it to turn into anxiety, is I vocalize it to somebody. And I know, again, just like 4 daily tasks, this probably sounds silly to somebody, but I'll say stuff that I'm worried about in the business. I'll talk to you about, Robert, and just getting it out there somehow gives me perspective on where things are really at, but also has a way of getting out of my head and into the real world where I don't make up stories about it. I'll say, Robert, I'm worried about traffic in the business. Am I over worrying? What can I do? The first thing is just by saying that out loud to somebody gets it out of my head. The second thing is now I get Robert's perspective on it, which usually changes the way that I look at it. And then the third thing is I can get some advice. So either Robert will say, try this, maybe go look at this, maybe go talk to this person. And so now I've got action steps from a third party. And in a weird way, it kind of takes that, what I was feeling on myself, that burden, that weight that I was carrying, and in a weird way, it externalizes it onto Robert, where now, even though he doesn't know that, he's basically become my guide, right? He repoints me, he refocuses in me. So I do a lot of my personal stuff I'll do with Robert, business stuff definitely with Robert, but then I have, that same anxiety when I'm worried about things that are going on in my household. I go to my wife with those things and do the same thing. So it helps in my personal relationship, right? Where same thing happens. I get it out of my head. I've got people that I go to in spiritual needs that I go and talk to. I've got people that I go to work to talk to in different personal development type stuff. So I think that the act of finding somebody you trust, vocalizing it, and then getting guidance from those people takes the burden off of you and kind of shifts it externally so that somebody else can get a look at it and sort of point you in the right direction. And for me, that is the absolute key to not getting stuck in my head and staying motivated on whatever journey I'm on.
Super great. So vocalize it, get that perspective, and then get advice from the person that you're talking to. And you know what all of that reminds me of, Mr. Lance, is the other day me and the girlfriend were out at a movie theater, and we like to go to this theater where like there's like recliners and there's a cup holder, and then you can get like drinks and like alcoholic drinks and stuff there if you want. But the seats are like super spaced out and you have like tons of room. And then so we had the theater almost to ourselves, and this sort of old couple came, and they were like 80, 90 years old, and they came and they brought their own like bottle of wine, and they were like uncorking stuff, and they had like glasses, not plastic, so they for sure like they were drunk, they snuck stuff in, and I kind of looked at them and I thought it was kind of funny. And then and we were just watching like some crappy romantic comedy, and throughout the movie, like every now and then this like super old couple, they were kind of they were chit chatty, not for longer than maybe like 30 seconds, but just enough to be annoying. And at first, when it started happening, I was kind of thinking like, oh, there's this kind of obnoxious old couple that's drinking next to us. Like, do I kind of like kind of just take it? Or do I like speak up and then like kind of ruin their day? And I was sort of like, sort of stuck. And then I noticed that my girlfriend was getting like super worked up, and it was like just the fact that I kind of saw her getting worked up made me realize that like, well, geez, like first of all, I'm kind of like overreacting about it when I see how it looks on the outside. And the other thing that I kind of realized at that moment was that like, we all kind of have these, if you want to call it like tools or a swipe file or whatever, but like we all have a certain like bag of tricks that work for us. And so every time that this old couple kind of spoke up, I kind of thought to myself like different perspectives, like, well, first of all, they're probably hard of hearing. Second of all, they're having a good time. Third of all, who's it hurting? And fourth of all, the movie's kind of crappy anyway. And then also fifth of all, like they kind of after a while they kind of toned it down. And so like just little things like that, just kind of like having my go-tos, or having my like if I've been in a similar situation before, like if I've been like at a party and I was the designated driver and everyone else is being like rowdy or drinking, like what sort of things get me out of that kind of angry place. If I say, oh well, at least everyone's having fun, or something, or like who's it hurting, just little things like that. I found that if I can kind of solve the problem in one situation, if I can remember what I did to either solve it or make myself feel better about it, or kind of wonder if it didn't matter, I can apply it in other places. And even like in that movie theater kind of situation, sort of a random story, but at the time I was like a little bit keyed up, and then the girlfriend got mad, and then that kind of made me sort of relax. But then, as we were even driving home from the movie theater, we were talking about it, and we were already over it by the time the movie theater was done. And we were saying, man, that's going to be a story that we tell ourselves like for years to come. We're going to say, well, wasn't that silly that time we were at the movie theater and there was the 90-year-old couple who like snuck stuff in, and they were having a good time, and they were talking over the movie. Like, what sort of a fun place to be. And so, as you were explaining, like we all kind of go through those rough times in our life, whether it's financial or personal or relationships or health or whatever. And and even like a week from now, a month from now, a year from now, at some point we're going to look back and say, even though that at the moment that was like the sort of the scariest or the most like bad place to be, we're going to look back and that's going to be a very fond memory. And so I think that sort of thinking, as you were explaining, that was sort of going through for me. I think that's helpful for me. I think that's helpful for others. And so I hope it helps everyone, whether you're an entrepreneur looking to get more done, or just like someone in any kind of other problem you're trying to solve, either to feel better about something without ignoring the problem. I think this is a very helpful episode for all of you guys to listen to. And so, Mr. Lance, we know that you have businesses and websites and stuff. What do you have going on right now, and what websites would you like to share with us today?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two things that I'd like to say. The first is, if you're willing to take on the challenge of trying 4 daily tasks for 30 days, join our Facebook group at 4dailytasks.com/group. It's a Facebook group. There's no advertising, there's no chit chat. There's literally just people posting what their 4 daily tasks are. You'll be amazed at how it changes your life. Try that out. And the second thing is, it's really important to start building systems into your day. And so one of the things that I'd like everybody to check out is websiteremote.com/trial. And what this is if you're spending time updating WordPress, logging into WordPress, you got 5 sites, it takes you an hour to update. Check out websiteremote.com/trial. It's an awesome tool that you can literally do all your updates. You can see what's going on. You can move plugins around between sites. You can do all kinds of cool stuff in a single click of a button so that you don't have to spend. I mean, you'll save yourself an hour or 2 hours or however long keeping your websites up to date by just logging in, clicking a button, and then going on to your next thing. You can try it out for 99 cents at websiteremote.com/trial. I appreciate you having me on the show, Robert.
I appreciate you being on. So everyone go right there, fordailytasks.com/GROUP, and then websiteremote.com/TRIAL. We appreciate you too, Mr. Lance. We appreciate you guys listening, and we'll talk to you very, very soon. Bye now.
Do you run your online business using WordPress? Did you know that the #1 reason why people's WordPress sites get hacked is because of outdated plugins, outdated WordPress, or just flat out not knowing what they have out there? I mean, how many times have you created a test site and just let it sit there? You're leaving yourself at risk. Besides that, you're wasting a ton of time every single time WordPress updates or your plugins update. There's a better way. Check out Website Remote, where you can manage all of your WordPress sites from one simple-to-use dashboard. I'm talking about comparing what's on each site, comparing what versions are out there, and, most importantly, choosing what you want to update when you want to update it with one single click. This is the way that you need to be managing all of your WordPress sites. And we have a special just for you for being a listener of the Lance Tamashiro Show. Head on over to websiteremote.com/LTS. That's websiteremote.com/LTS to get your 99-cent trial started today. You're never going to look at managing your WordPress sites